Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Love Matters podcast. I'm the Love Shepherd, Larry Michael, and I am so grateful to have you here with me today. This is like a very special show for me, and my guest doesn't even know how special, so she's going to find out as I talk about it. Alison Armstrong, who's the guest today, is someone that I've known about for a long time and followed for a long time, and happened to be on a number of summits with her over the years, but we have never talked or met until today. And so that's super special to me. In fact, I don't get nervous very often, and I'm a little nervous. So here we go. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Alison. Her exploration of human behavior began in 1991 with her decision to study what else? Men. And what did she want to do? In her words, to find out how I was bringing out the worst in them and hopefully how to bring out the best. Sounds like a good strategy to me. Her success in understanding men naturally led to also studying women's behavior and making vital connections between the two. Alison distinguishes human instincts that compel both men and women to behave in ways that contradict and undermine our own purposes, our goals, our values, our needs, and often our relationships. She offers partnership-based alternatives, giving literally millions of people access to more fulfilling lives, loving relationships, stronger families, and productive organizations. Alison is a sought-after speaker and a thought leader amongst people with a desire to live empowered lives. Her philosophy and approach is frequently referenced and taught by others, me included, speakers, business consultants, and therapists. She's published a number of books, and she has some incredible audio program. You may have heard of Understanding Men Online's course, the book, The Queen's Code. It's a must read, literally. In Sync with Opposite Sex audio program, and they kind of go on from there. I mean, if you go to Amazon, you're going to see a list that's longer than you can deal with in a day, for sure. Alison, welcome to the Love Matters podcast.
Thank you. I'm so glad. I'm just glad to be part of your new podcast. How exciting.
It is exciting, and I'm so thrilled that you're part of this conversation. I always love to begin by helping the listeners, especially those that don't know you, and maybe those that do know you, but not as much as we'd like them to understand not just how you got into this, but why you keep doing it. I mean, you get up in the morning and you make a decision to continue, and you've been doing this for years now. And so there's passion and drive behind it. And I get in the beginning, you were kind of like trying to figure out men, so probably you could find the best relationship. But you figured out a lot, and you've come so far in terms of what you're teaching people. Why do you still do this? What's driving you?
Well, what drives me is I was probably born an activist. And so everything that doesn't work is a problem for me. And there was this moment where my work as the chairman of the Homeless Issues Task Force and the founder of the Orange County Center for Children and my study of men all converged in this, oh my gosh, we're never going to be able to solve the real problems as long as men and women keep taking themselves and each other out. Like, we're working on stupid stuff. We've got heroes dusting pianos. We've got men trying to get out of conversation with their testicles. No, we need them solving hunger and homelessness and clean water and big problems, worthy problems, not this stupid stuff we do to each other. And that's why I've kept going, and I never had to commit to studying men. I mean, in the beginning, I thought it would take 2 or 3 months to learn everything worth knowing about you. Sorry. I know. I didn't know how bad I was until I really found out. But since then, I've never had to dedicate myself because men are fascinating. And then you guys showed me who women are, and I fell in love with women. And then it became really important to figure out, okay, how can we put this together with like the least amount of energy to bring out the best in ourselves and each other? And I'm an engineer, so I'm hooked for life. I mean, it's
That's
one
great.
problem to solve after another.
I love that. So you reminded me of something that's really important to me, and that's that. And I'll just reference that for those people that haven't watched us or seen us before in a number of summits. We end up talking to a lot of women, right? Like it's mostly women that have been investing in personal development and relationship related endeavors. And the guys have kind of come along, and there's a small subset of men, but it's been a priority, a majority women, right? And I, recently, I personally made a decision not to do any more summits that are just for women.
Mm, yes.
And you are the only person I know in this industry that made a very definite decision not to just teach women about men, but teach men about women.
Yeah.
And I really want to compliment you on that, but I'm curious what drove that. What was behind that decision to to really open up your audience and go after a group that, well, men that are not usually buying this stuff, right?
Mm. Wow, I have so much to say about just why men don't. But okay, so we made the conscious choice to focus on women because in what used to be always referenced as the war between the sexes, I saw women as the aggressor,
Mm.
that they were the ones that were first blood. And that if we were going to shift this around, which was true in my own experience, that as soon as I stopped attacking men without ever even doing anything kind or empowering, I was stunned by who men became. I didn't know that's who men were naturally if they weren't on the defense. So after 4 years of studying men, when we started our workshop, it was aimed at women because it changed everything for a woman just to lay down her sword. Then after it was a long time. It took me a long time. It was probably 10 years or more when I realized that I was doing our students a disservice because they had committed to not intentionally bringing out the worst in men, but they were living in homes with men who did not know how they were bringing out the worst in the women, which then would bring out the worst in them.
Mm.
So they were not being empowered by men who are often starting the whole pinball thing going off, right? So that's when I was like, oh my gosh, I need to serve my students by teaching them, their men, how to understand them. Well, it was 12 years in that I understood men well enough that I could translate a woman's mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, sexual state into Menglish, into manese, into man speak. I could have a total lack of focus make sense to someone who only knows focus, for
Mm.
example.
That's a big shift.
It is. I could connect the dots, right? Because they go, so they're multi-focus. No, 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 honey. They don't focus at all.
Mm.
What?
Oh, wow.
so so when that happened, that was really exciting. But then the first time I did the course, my own husband was in it. And oh my gosh, talk about like eyes rolling around in his head. He learned so much that he didn't know, and he lived with me, and I was always trying to make myself understood. And then I had this experience that men had told me about. They're like, oh, thank you, my wife did your workshop and I don't walk around on eggshells anymore. And I'm like, oh, I'm so glad. And I was at home, we were at dinner the night after Greg did Understanding Women, and I did something, and I quick looked to see if he was irritated.
Oh, you were ready for the response, right?
I was totally ready for the like the little hitch that
Yeah.
happens in a man when a woman does something irritating, which just asked him a question and then immediately interrupted and jumped up, and when he got something came back, and then I looked at him and I thought he was gonna have this like thing, and instead he just is smiling at me. He's like, was that a diffuse awareness moment?
That's great. So not only did he come to your seminar, he listened and he learned. That's
He
great.
learned, he learned, he developed compassion. He's like, I don't understand how you even get out the door. He became, I mean, he just stepped into it in such
Wow.
a beautiful way. And so then I got to hear back from the women and the men. And honestly, at this point in our understanding level curriculum, if I could only do one course, it would be understanding women. And because it's co-ed, right? And I'm contrasting hunting and gathering and hunting. And if a woman's, in hunting mode and committed and focused, she needs this. And if she's open and available, connective, she needs this. And this is how you do this and that. And it's the thing. If you only do one thing, you have to do understanding women, whether you're a man or a woman. And
that's the piece I love.
yeah.
That's the piece I love. And that was going to be my question. You have been speaking to just women, and then you spoke to really just men, and now you brought them together. And do you think that's the direction that we need to go? And that's my personal belief, is that's the direction we need to go. Otherwise, we continue to create polarity between the sexes. And
yeah, I mean, exactly. I've been working on a new curriculum for 4 years. I was challenged to create a curriculum that was co-ed from the beginning, and be able to deal with having men and women in the room together who without them ever having to try, their instincts are going to bring out the worst in each other. And so from the word one, that we were going to wrestle this alligator together. And so, I mean, I'm having the first ever open to the public co-ed event at the end of January of my new curriculum. And that's exactly what we're doing. We're starting off together, and we're going to deal with, if somebody's emasculating men, we're going to handle it. If a man is doing the thing that he doesn't, can you hear the dog barking?
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me that was a sore throat. No, that's the dog, right? That's great. It's all right. Animals are allowed on this show. I have a little white one, and yeah.
Well, my keep the dogs from barking person isn't here to do that.
That's fine.
So, yeah,
they're part of our life.
They're definitely part of mine. And so, for example, men do things that literally bring out the worst in women, like nasty, mean, scary, crazy looking stuff. And they don't know that they're doing it. And if you ask them to do the opposite of it, I've had men refuse. Like, okay, so in this next exercise, guys, you don't have to invest anything. Honest. We haven't told you the plan, so we're not asking you to invest, but I need the women to feel safe before they can hear the plan, or we can't even begin. So in this next part, I just need you to be available for women to connect with you, especially the women you're sitting behind, because you're the most dangerous. So if a woman turns around and looks you in the eye and says, hi, just say hi back. Is everybody willing to do that? And I actually had a man say, no, I'm not. So he had to leave.
That's fair. That's fair. I have so many questions. This is, and we only have 6 days to complete this show. So we're using the terminology men and women. And what I'm curious about, and this is going to take us down probably a number of paths, are we better to talk about the masculine and the feminine? Or, is that kind of a more open engagement, more fluid conversation? Or does man, woman actually, become the way that we need to have the conversation from your perspective? I have my own opinion.
From my perspective, neither of them work very well. Masculine and feminine, which I used for a very long time, including in the Queen's Code, it has so much baggage. It has so much right, wrong in it. And still, it still does. There's so much, hold on, Larry.
Okay.
There's so much feminine is still known by too many as weak. And so for a man to identify with being feminine, he's kind of apologetic about it, or is that okay? Women are either righteous about being masculine or afraid that they're too masculine. And for me, and you pointed this out when we were talking beforehand, it's just not precise enough. And so that's why I talk about both men and women in hunting mode or gathering mode. That it's literally a mental state that is affected by our hormones, but we can change our mental state and affect our own hormones. And it is the most simplest way to look at it is, are you in a state of commitment to a particular goal or intention or result or destination? That's going to, it's going to cause you to change how you perceive what matters to you, what gets filtered out, how you relate to your emotions, communication, how you listen, how you speak. It affects everything. Or are you open? Are you open to alternatives, possibilities, alternatives? Are you options, which is a state of available to be connected? So there's a connectivity versus a focus that disconnects.
Right.
And
so the focus part is the hunter, right?
yeah,
The open part is the gatherer, right? By
yeah,
your definition.
you could do that,
And
yeah.
and the question, and I
But
think
I just would say one thing though.
okay.
Sorry. If you say hunter, you now objectified.
Okay, you're in a hunter mode, right?
Yes,
Right.
hunting mode.
Hunting mode.
It's
okay.
more fluid than that. And especially women, a woman can go from gathering mode to hunting mode like that.
Now, do you think men can do that or not?
It all depends on his total testosterone level, which I know because I take bioidentical testosterone, so I know how it affects me. How fluid I am depends upon how much testosterone I've got going.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So testosterone levels can raise and lower for a number of reasons as well, right? Yeah.
Like how much did you sleep?
Yeah. So, and did you work out? And are you breathing effectively? A number
Did
of things,
you have
right?
sex?
Yeah.
And did you win at it?
Right. Yeah. Of course. So, and this is true for both sexes, right? In terms of those hormone levels.
Oh man, we could spend the whole rest of the time on it, but
We could.
hormones.
Yeah, and if we invited John Gray in, we'd have a threesome. It would be crazy.
Oh, it would be so fun. We should do that.
We should do that. So when I read or listen to you talk about the hunter-gatherer and hunting, gathering, right?
Thank you.
I'm kind of a quick learner.
It's a verb. It's a way of being.
Okay, so that mode, I mean, to me, what I was hearing, because I really love to focus on repairing a lot of the misconceptions and the ill design conceptions of the masculine and feminine. So I appreciate what you're saying there. I think there are some deep wounds and there are some really poorly maladjusted beliefs around what's masculine and feminine that allow both male and female to disappreciate themselves or appreciate themselves no matter what in different circumstances. So I think there's work to be done there for sure.
Yeah.
And I can see where the clarity you're offering here though is in a way kind of similar, right? Wouldn't you say that the gathering, or would you say that the gathering mode is really more of a feminine strategy, methodology, way of being?
Okay, let me counter with something for you to think about yourself.
Okay.
So most men most of the time are in hunting mode. These days, most women most of the time are in hunting mode. Men are most likely to be in that open, connected gathering mode when you are at play.
Mm-hmm.
When you are at play. And when you are at play, you are not feminine. When you are at play, you are a man at play. And that's when women fall in love with you, because you got those pheromones that we're so sensitive to, but you're available, you're connective. There's nothing more sexy than that. It's not being feminine. I mean, the true feminine are these archetypes of the temptress and the mother and the queen, and of these extraordinary qualities, and they're all forms of power. So when a man is at play, he isn't accessing what I have called for years feminine forms of power. He's accessing another part of himself that's hot, and it's what we fall in love with. And then, unfortunately, because we don't understand, well, now I got to get back to work and feed you. We try to keep pulling you back into that mode, and we'll interrupt your focus to get you to come back and play, come back and play, come back and play, instead of understanding, no, you have to go hunt, and then you have to rest, and then you can play.
Do you think it's possible for a man to very quickly, or actually dance with that configuration? And
I think the more conscious anyone is, the more you can affect your state of being at any moment.
Got it. And I would have to say that what you're doing is all about raising that consciousness, yes?
Yeah, especially the awareness of what are the instincts that are driving us to do the things that destroy what we want, and and not to make those instincts wrong, like to catch it. Like, I mean, I teach women to catch themselves in the knee-jerk reaction to emasculate, and that when they catch themselves, instead of beat themselves up, we call it the notice dance. I noticed.
Oh my gosh.
And you're all happy that they noticed, because then they're training their brain. Oh, you want me to notice? Okay, I'll keep noticing. And that moment of noticing is the moment where you can no, let me not do that.
Got it.
You don't get to choose until you notice.
So here's, this brings up a sensitive question.
Okay.
The Me Too movement. Right?
Hashtag Me Too. You have to say hashtag Me Too, because Me Too is this reaction that women have, like, me too, I love lemon white beans.
All right. Hashtag Me Too. Stand corrected. Hashtag Me Too.
Yeah, Me Too. What about it?
From my perspective, there were parts about that movement that were essential because it created an awareness that wasn't very popular or available before. And then it went wonky. It's my opinion. And the part of the result of it is there become a men's hashtag Me3 movement, or whatever you want to call it. But there's a number of movements where men took off like they had to protect themselves and went into the same kind of conversations. And, as I stood back and watched it, I went, oh my gosh, this is volatile, and it's dangerous, and it's damaging. And I'm curious what your opinion is.
Well, I did a webinar called Alison's 5-part response to hashtag Me Too. And if you ask Leslie for the link, you can see it. I was brought in the very beginning because I have graduates in the movie industry, in the Producers Guild. And my basic assertion is human beings have needs. Some of them are recurring, some of them are insatiable. There's a point where we'll do whatever it takes to get what we need, including abuse power. Both men and women abuse power. Honorable men and women are ashamed of having done that. Dishonorable men and women are not ashamed. They think they have the right to do that. Unfortunately, abuses of power always require complicity. Children are never complicit. Just take that off the table. And until we own our own complicity, which is our part of the ability of an abuse of power to survive, none of this is going to stop. But it's not a man thing. Women abuse power just as much as as men do. Children abuse power.
Oh, yeah, well, that's their testing process, right? Let's
Exactly
figure
right.
this out.
I mean, they're ruthless about it,
Yeah.
and it's so. I mean, that's the abbreviated version, and it's not just sex. It's every form of power. People abuse their intellect, their money, their knowledge, their technology, like any advantage we can find that is human instinct to use it to get what you need.
Hmm. And right, so there's the kind of the underlying motions for it, but there's a huge kind of victimization thing that is floating around on top of all that, that makes it, yeah, I get it.
Disgusting.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Disgusting.
And
Because
I'm
it
wondering how that
disappears.
comes up in your teaching when you encounter both men or women, both men. I mean, I've now heard women, are both men and women, express their feelings about a situation with equal degrees of victimization, where I'm going, wow, you know, you guys could have been locked in the same cell together. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
And before anything can get through to them that gets them closer to their heart, they have to get out of that mode. In
Yeah,
my, I
I
believe.
fortunately don't have to deal with it a lot because since I don't tolerate victimization, I have enormous
Good for you.
compassion for for having for that moment of shock when something happened and you truly couldn't have done anything about it, and um, do all kinds of healing in that area. But if someone doesn't want to be responsible for how they're conducting their lives and interpreting their lives and deciding whether to be a walking wounded, or the decision I made years ago, which, I found out dolphins shed their skin 12 times every 24 hours. So you cannot tell them by their wounds within days.
Hmm.
And I decided I'm a dolphin. I'm going to be unrecognizable by anything that has ever happened to me in my life. And that set me on the trail of what's now called extreme freedom. It's one of the most important courses I ever produced online. And I don't have tolerance for people who want to belong and get status and all the benefits of being endlessly wounded.
Yeah.
So they stay away from.
Get it. I get it. And I appreciate that greatly and respect that decision. I think it's great. So I want to hear more about this course, because to me, it sounds very much, I would put it in different words. My focus is about being present and how to find yourself and live within that precious present that we have. And, if the same thing, if we were shedding our skin every 12 hours, it's like, it's all happening now, right? Right now. And whatever was here seconds ago is no longer. So you might as well just live now, right? So tell us a little bit about your course. It sounds fabulous.
Well, it's called extreme freedom because freedom means the power to choose. And so it starts with you have the power to choose how much freedom you want to have. It's not absolute freedom. Not everybody wants the same amount of freedom. And I love that you were to bring up the word present, because my passion is partnership. And partnership isn't possible until you're actually present, until you're present to
Agreed.
yourself and you're present to the other person. And when you're the walking wounded with a brain that is effectively a search engine scanning for proof of the conclusions that you made about yourself and others from your wounds. And so you're never going to have any other reality than what you're scanning for. So you actually aren't present to yourself. You're not present to anybody else. You're missing like 999 bits of information out of 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
It's all impossible until we're whole. Like that's where we've got to start, is by becoming whole. And so I call it restoration, liberation, whatever kind of word, freedom, whatever word somebody wants. But I just have years, sometimes sought it out, like the Sedona methods are phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they pressed through me, like something we call noble healing, which heals that moment of shock and dishonor that like has it lodged in you forever, and no matter how you rationalize it, you can't get it out. Well, this heals that. It totally disappears it and the insatiable needs that it caused. We have noble forgiveness, which is about shame, when we betrayed our own values, when we betrayed our own sense of honor. If we don't restore ourselves, oh, bad stuff happens. We call it the road to hell. And we have something called noble rightness.
It's the fast track to hell.
Fast track to hell, yes. But it's also the quickest access to restoring yourself if you just know, head into that tornado. And there's something called noble rightness, which is just like in a moment to heal us from all the times we were told we were wrong. No, you were right. Mm-hmm. Right? It just produces bigger breathing. And then Hal Dwoskin's given me permission to teach 3 of the Sedona methods in any training I ever do.
Oh, that's great.
Oh yeah, I'm going to be with him next week. I can't wait. So it's an online course. It has no prerequisites, even though it's at our 2nd level called Being Extraordinary. And it was Greg's favorite course. He just thought it was, oh my gosh, he was ecstatic. He was doing it a 2nd time. And when he got really extreme freedom on June 15th. And I actually there's a handout from Extreme Freedom called Restoration Requires. And I keep it in the front of the file that I access to keep processing grief whenever I need to, so that I don't turn being a widow into its own racket. That I'm not harvesting the benefits of this cultural view we have of what a sad sap I'm supposed to be if I really love my husband, right? And so I keep checking Restoration Requires, letting go of the benefits. Okay, am I getting any benefits? Are there any clubs I get to belong to now? Might be a sad sack. Okay, no, don't do that. Do I get any status? Okay, what's the average age of a widow? Am I a young widow? Do I get to tell people I'm a young widow? I'm exactly the average age of a widow.
Oh gosh.
I just keep unhooking. And so that one sheet in Extreme Freedom is probably one of the most important things I ever produced, including what if we don't heal because we think we don't deserve to heal? Because we have shame about how we've harmed people. Okay, well, let's handle that first. And so that's how the course goes.
It sounds fabulous. I mean, it really sounds great. My work, usually when I work with people, we go deeply into the beliefs that they're holding on to. And those beliefs, one way or another, are going to create shame, blame, guilt, resentment, judgment. And most of the time I find that a lot of those beliefs are not even theirs, right? They're everybody else's. And, my advice is just give it back. Whoever gave it to you, just give it back. Thank them. They probably meant well. Hopefully they meant well, but give it back. I think that when I listen to you, I think we're heading in the same direction as just giving ourselves the freedom to show up fully in the present, right? Yes. And so I really appreciate that work. I want to know more.
Yeah, thank you. And if I may, and I'm sure you already know this, what's paradoxical is instincts drive us to make those conclusions, right? We have to have that belief. We have to have that conclusion about why something happened or didn't happen, right? So that we can create a strategy to cause it again or prevent it again. And then when we have a strategy, then we feel really empowered, except for the moment you have a strategy and you're an implementation of a strategy, you're no longer present. And so you've just lost the infinite ability to respond. Because you can't get more empowered than an infinite ability to respond. And now you have just this little narrow window of response. And so it's this illusion. It's this illusion of being empowered when you actually have just been handicapped.
What was going through my head as you were talking, I can tell we could have a very long conversation here. You refer to it as instinct to search for all those.
Yes.
I think it's our association with time that has it search for those. That as long as we're living we consider ourselves living in a linear time frame, where there's things that have happened to us and things that are going to happen to us, then perhaps the instinct now is looking for answers from the past or projecting in the future, wanting something there. And both of those get us out of the present, right? So is it instinct, or is it just that we're so dialed into linear time? I mean, we don't get to flow when we're in linear time because we're too busy about it depleting, leaving us, and us aging and eventually dying. But, you know, if we can pull ourselves out of that and just be in the present, then we don't have to deal with time, nor do we have to deal with allowing our instincts to go looking for those disastrous beliefs to crop up and force us into habits that we don't want to be constantly reliving. Am I asking, is this making sense?
It does make sense. It's just
you got to take your watch off to do that one, right?
so the definition of instinct is a primal biological urge impelling a response which brings relief of tension. Okay. So we perceive a threat or an opportunity, because an opportunity immediately becomes a threat because you might fail at it or waste all your resources on it. We experience tension in our bodies. And it's all about survival. And survival is all about time. It's all about avoiding death. So instinct and time, it's not one or the other. We have instincts about time. Time triggers instinct. It's all part of the same package, that whichever way you become aware of it, you become aware of the tension, or you become aware of that you're just not present. They're both ways to become aware and then get to choose.
Okay. So we're really, the awareness is creating the choice and the freedom, right?
Yes. And whether you're becoming aware of tension, you're becoming aware of, I'm on a deadline. Oh, there's an instinctive term. Or you feel like the prefrontal lobe of your head has been crushed down into your eyebrows and you just can't think straight.
I'm not sure that's your best look, Alison.
It's not meant to be, and it's not going to be my best behavior either. But if I can feel like someone crushed the prefrontal cortex, I know I am having a cavewoman attack. Take a moment, or 10, or a day. Right. Don't open your mouth, Alison. Don't open your mouth. So however we can become aware, whether it's just, I'm not breathing. If I'm not breathing, I'm not present. Mm-hmm. Any way, and I propose we have 1,000 ways to be able to catch yourself.
What are your favorites? Like if someone said, I want to know your top 10, or your top 5. Top 5.
Top 5. Okay.
Now I want everyone to listen closely with this, because this is a strategy that you can start using right now.
Right now. Okay. So my top ways all have to do with training my brain to have an alarm go off when I have certain feelings. So when for example, in one of our courses, the Dance of Partnership, we practice our manipulative routines. We distinguish how we manipulate and each step of our manipulation, and then we practice it on each other again and again and again and again in all these different ways, causing our brains to memorize the vibration of manipulation in a human body, so that when it happens in me, when I'm revving up my shtick, that I feel that the engine, start your engine. I feel the engagement instantaneously. That's one of my signals. Like, oops. Do this thing.
So quickly, because the term manipulation, I know a lot of people think that it's a very negative term. In fact, we have a modifier in our genetic energetic system that we called manipulators. And we actually changed it because so many people had a hard time with that term. Yes. And I know some people can manipulate for not very friendly results, but there are also people that manipulate with really great intention. Mm-hmm. And so I'm curious, when you use that term, where does it fit in there?
Well, as you know, manipulate comes from the same word that means hand. right? So manual, handle, we want to handle things.
Mm-hmm.
We use the term shtick. Um,
I grew up with that term. I know that one.
awesome. And we use it on purpose, right? Because it's a comedy routine. And if you can attune yourself to the energy of um, manipulation, which is the opposite of choice. When someone goes into their routine, they actually want to cut off any option other than the one they're leading you to. So it's a reduction in freedom. And it eliminates the possibility of partnership. It eliminates the possibility of anybody being truly accountable. It just sucks the life out of everything beautiful. So I don't mean anything positive about manipulation, except for when I talk about manipulating myself. Like, do I want to be more open and connective today, or do I need to focus? Let's see, the estrogen or the estradiol or the testosterone, which are estradiol or testosterone, how much of each do I need? I literally manipulate my own hormones. I can manipulate my own mental state. I like that with me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the only person we have a right to manipulate is ourselves. And even if it's for good, I still don't believe in it, because if someone doesn't get to choose their own good, it's not their own, and it's never going to come to much in the first place.
Okay. All right. I'm just allowing that interpretation. It's,
Thank
the
you for
semantics
allowing my interpretation.
in my mind, because there's a part of me, it's the salesman part of me from years ago that
Yes.
learned to be a really good salesperson, was one that that could steer someone into seeing something in a way that they otherwise might not have seen it, that they see a benefit and the person's in the way of that benefit. And so they will manipulate, if you will, the conversation to open the person up to other possibilities. Now, that's a very positive, way of framing the word, but I think that I'm probably a very tiny percentage of people that would use it that way.
Yeah. And of course, an enroller would end up with a very positive.
That's what we changed it to, by the way.
Right?
Yes.
Yes. And yeah, I mean, I've double teamed and triple teamed, and I am totally into conspiring for people. And since I think like an engineer and I design, every one of my courses, I am taking you down a garden path,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to do whatever it takes to produce the results I promise.
Mm-hmm.
And like with extreme freedom, how I am in that course is I'm coming for you.
Okay.
I will bust
You've
you
walked
out.
in that door, we're locking it behind you, right? Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
I will tunnel under your prison to break you free.
Wow.
Um, and of course, then you have a choice. You can walk right back in if you want to.
Sure.
So,
Got it. All right. So that was the first one. What's the second one?
wait, okay. No, wait. Yes. Well, there is the one where my forehead is caving in.
Okay.
There's tension in my body. There's the manipulative shtick,
Okay.
definitely the revving up of that. Another one I pay attention to is chemistry. Chemistry makes us stupid. Chemistry is, I mean, it's literally a cocktail. It's epinephrine and testosterone, and it turns a woman into hunting mode. I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get that man. I'm gonna get that man. I'm gonna keep that man. I'm gonna make that man act right. And no matter what it turns me into, and feeling. So the heated skin and the breath and the can't stop looking again, can't stop looking,
Right.
right? Memorize that one.
Lots of it's a cocktail of every imaginable potent neurotransmitter, right? So we got it.
Well, of course, it's survival of the species. It's my son wouldn't exist without it. So that's another one definitely to memorize. The other one to memorize is it's tired. What does it feel like when you're tired? Because many people, their reaction to being tired is a low blood sugar reaction. They feed tired carbs instead of, how about drink some water, go to bed? your life actually will get better that way. You have more capacities from drinking water and going to bed than you do from any amount of carbs.
I had a very good friend years ago. I love this man, amazing trainer, who said, "I'm never tired." He does not like that word, does not exist in his vocabulary. He says, "My body's exhausted." He said, "Tired is a mental state. But if instead I pay attention to my body and how I'm feeling, which is ultimately what you're talking about, right? How are you feeling? Do you need sleep? Do you need rest, relaxation? Do you need to breathe, for goodness sake, right?
Right.
But when you call yourself tired, it's like you've given yourself a label and almost made it more difficult to just honor the rest that you might need, or to say to yourself, you have been sprinting down this path continuously and you do really need to take a break, before you can continue your sprint, whatever the case might be. But I like the way you described the condition of it. And that's the piece. That's great. Awesome. So those of you listening, there's 5 strategies for you. I don't know if I could do that with my
You just have to think of like Cro-Magnon Man, right? Where
I
there's
can
this
do that.
heavy brow ridge and very short forehead. And so just imagine you're just crushed down into our distant cousin.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I'm going to work on that privately.
Okay.
All right.
What I'm known for is I don't mind looking bad. I was on Facebook last week I had a green Smurf hair and a fuzzy green mustache on, and people were taking pictures of me at Date with Destiny with Tony Robbins, and I wouldn't take them off. Like, you want a picture of me now? This is what you're going to get.
That's great. That's fun. What an amazing event that is.
It is.
Love.
Love.
Do you have a definition for it or not?
No, I don't have a definition.
Yes. I do like you.
That would be like idiocy. Like, how do you, it's not small enough. We'd need what, 1,000 words, 10,000 words? I like to focus on love as a verb.
Yeah.
That's my thing, the verb. And I've practiced for about 15 years letting go of everything that isn't love and dwelling in my love for people and dwelling in people's love for me. And I am love. And then how does it get expressed? And when people are like, "But I love you," like, that's just disgusting. That's not love. Or when people say, well, it was a conditional love. Look, a conditional love is not love. If you have to say unconditional or conditional, we're not talking about the same thing. That's my short version.
I love that. Okay, that's great. Thank you for that.
We can get along. We can do this again.
We can. For me, I don't believe there's a definition for it either. I think once we define it, we're actually trying to immortalize something that we experienced in the past, or we're trying to project into something in the future. And neither of those are love, because they're not present, for one, and they don't really allow for the one thing that's most important, which is just our beautiful life force to come out, right?
Yes.
When in your work, do you distinguish for people, like especially around relationships, the difference, and this is why I asked you about love, the difference between behaviors of love and actually just what you might consider quality behaviors? Like, there, so often I'll hear people say, "Well, you don't love me." And they're not talking about whether you love them or not. They're saying, "You didn't take out the grocery, you didn't take out the garbage, or you didn't run to the store to get me groceries," or whatever. It's some action, some activity that's important to them. I don't want to make it small, but it's the action and activity that's important, and they're lumping love in there as if it was like a leverage piece. And I'm curious how.
Not as if. It's if you loved me, you would have, or you would. Prove it. And
that gets this, right?
Yes. I'm trying to not do it again. I was talking today about how um, we believe that if you love me and I love you, I'm entitled to you telling me the truth. Even if I've used the truth against you consistently for the last 20 years, you still owe me the truth. And I mean, that's one of the biggest expectations and entitlements that people have with love. And that's just gross. And but I also I think it's valuable for us to let people know, when you do this, I feel loved. I experience being loved. And I like the term love languages, and I know there's the 5 love languages. Well, I think there's the 500 love languages.
Yeah.
And, one of mine is curiosity, which comes from the Greek word that means to care. So when somebody asks a question and actually waits for the answer, they want the answer, they care about the answer. Oh my gosh. Truth is a love language. You tell me the truth. I don't care if I hate the truth itself. That you told it to me, that's love. So those things I think are really important, that we keep telling each other. And we did this when we used to have our couples retreat. We would have couples express, I express my love for you by, and talk about looks of shock on the other person's face. What? You do that because of love? And then the person's like, you think I like to do that?
I remember one time I had a couple in my office, and neither of them thought that the other was expressing love to each other. And I'm watching, and I hear one, and then I hear the other, and they've got 2 different communication styles, so that's a challenge in the first place. But I felt like German, Spanish, and I had the translator in my head, and I really had to ask, when you do this, what does that mean? And they would go, well, love, of course. What else could it mean? And the other person would be going, no, and they almost didn't even want to believe it, because it was so obvious when they saw it, right? And how could they be missing it?
And especially if it was sex. I feel loved when you're a yes to sex. Yeah. What? Huh?
That's a bit problematic. Yeah. Absolutely. So I know we need to be sensitive about time, because you have a very busy schedule, and I so appreciate the time that you made to be on this show. We're going to put in the transcription all the different ways to get a hold of you.
Awesome.
But a parting comment.
About anything?
Anything you like. Even your dog. Do you want to talk about your dog? No, actually.
My dog's name is Buckminster.
Really? Oh, that's great.
Yes. And I'm appalled at how many people have no idea who Buckminster Fuller was. What's happened to the world that nobody knows about him? Talk about love, right?
That's right. My dog is Hanuman, so right? All right. So let's.
If I was going to say anything, wow. Well, on the topic of love, I would say at this point in my life, right, which is 6 months after Craig died suddenly, that love never ends. Just doesn't end. I have such an experience of getting to love him and to be loved by him, and to have him live in this crater he made in my chest of pure joy. And I think so much of our misery in life is because we think it can end, and we think that it does, right? Like that an end of a relationship is an end of love. No,
absolutely not.
Quit trying to kill the love you have for that person. It's not going to have you have less pain. It's going to have you have more. So I remember asking my father-in-law, what was it like to have 7 children? And he said, well, we just scooted over a little bit at the table. My mother-in-law had a different response, but that was my father-in-law's response. And that to me is love. Like the more you love, the more room you have at the table. So just keep expanding and expanding and expanding into it. And I try to fall in love as often as possible.
I really appreciate what you're saying, and what was coming in my mind, in addition to just how purely beautiful that expression is that a lot of people go in and out of relationships, and they think the love stops there, and they think they can't love someone that they decided to, whether they consciously or unconsciously uncoupled, right?
Right.
That the love has to stop there, and their new partner thinks that you can't love anybody else because you love me. And what you're saying is, no, give love freedom, right? And allow ourselves to feel it and know it, and experience the life of it, regardless of whether the human being is present or not, right? Or even the animal, or
The physicality, or that.
yeah, that's
I mean,
beautiful.
something that would be fun to talk about sometime, Larry, is what if we stop taking love personal?
Mhm.
And it's, I mean, when I met Greg 28 years ago, I looked in his eyes and I thought, this man loves me. And on our second date, I said, could we just get this out of the way? I love you, and I know that you love me. And it doesn't mean anything about what we're going to do together. But could we stop having that, climactic moment of who's going to say it first? And he laughed.
Did
And
he
then
laugh? How was his response?
he laughed because
What
it was,
great freedom with that. That's just
oh my
like,
gosh, oh
hell
my,
yes, okay, yeah.
there's nothing to earn, right? What if we stop trying to earn love? And that was one of the first things I learned studying men was, ladies, men already love you. Quit trying to get them to. You're
Mm.
just messing it up. And gosh, I just wish everybody knew that.
Mm. Well, hopefully more and more will. And I know thousands and tens of thousands do. And I'm convinced that hundreds of thousands will continue to learn it. And hopefully they'll hear it here, and it'll spark that reality. And that'll be a great gift.
Yes.
Alison, thank you so much for being on the Love Matters podcast. I so appreciate who you are and how you show up, and your energy and your joy for life, and giving and living and bringing choice and freedom into people's lives.
Mm.
Thank you
Thank
so
you for
much.
seeing me. Thank you so much for seeing me.
You're welcome. And that's the end of this edition of the Love Matters podcast. We'll see you on the next round.